In this video, you're going to be introduced to the idea of cascading style sheets and what they do for your website and web pages, how they affect the layout and presentation of a website, and how we actually go about it. So first of all, what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Pay particular attention to the style sheet portion of this. But what it is an overall is cascading style sheets, or CSS as it's commonly known, are a specific type of web page, a coded page, that describes the look and formatting of a document written in a markup language such as HTML. So what this does is CSS actually works to affect the layout and presentation of an HTML document, and it is an absolute cornerstone of the web design and development process. What does CSS do? For example, here is a page. This is a web page where no CSS has been applied. This should look in some ways very similar to the HTML project that you worked on, where it is the structure of the website only. There are no design or layout elements present. HTML used to have a larger role in the structure, but a lot of that has been removed and replaced with the use of CSS. So HTML really just provides the foundation. And here's that same web page with the CSS applied. As you can tell, the presentation elements of the color, backgrounds, background images, the layout, the way it's actually presented, the fonts, both the font family, the size, widths, margins, etc. All of that stuff is showing up now because of style sheets. And another example, if we go over to Firefox, this is the UW Stout website with all of the style sheets turned off. Looks a little different, doesn't it? What we have here is just basic structure in the form of these menus. We have a lot of unordered lists. We have the graphics. And again, we just keep going with content without any additional structure applied. What I'm using here is just the inspector tool that's built into Firefox. There are some other tools that we can use, but it allows you to turn these things on and off for the purposes of seeing what they do. I'm simply going to go and refresh this page and close this. And now you're going to see this is what the site looks like with the styles applied. So you can see the significant part of what happens when we use our style sheets. There are different types of style sheets, and it's important to understand which ones get used when and what pages they actually affect. So the three different types that there are inline, internal, and external. And I'm going to go over each of these in a bit more detail so you understand how they're used and when they're used and what exactly is affected. The first is inline, and it's applied, as the name implies, in line, meaning in line with the HTML coding, and it applies to a single element or section of elements within the website. So in this example, you can see that there is an H1 style that, because I've now applied this particular style, it's only going to affect the H1 right here on this page, and if there are any other H1s, it will not affect them. It's only going to affect this one element. The idea here is it loses many of the advantages of using a style sheet, because the purpose of using style sheets is so that you can centralize any significant changes across the website when it comes to the layout and presentation. So use this method sparingly. To use, and we're going to actually just go out to Dreamweaver, where I have some documents set up to go ahead and do this. So this is the About page based on the biography site that I created, and decided that I'm going to apply a style inline and just make some adjustments. So to do that, I'm going to go to this particular H2. I'm going to go inside of it and I'm going to use the word style. This indicates that this is an inline style. And I'm going to change the particular color of this H2. So we'll type in color. And I've already selected a color, so I'm just going to paste it in. It's kind of a dark tealy blue color. So this is the color. It's only going to affect this H2. So you'll see style equals, and then we have quotation marks that go around the color. We can add multiple styles in here, but let's just test out this first one. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to do a preview in my Google Chrome browser. So here it is without any other styles attached, but here is the H2 that I changed in line. And notice it is, like I say, that dark kind of teal color. This learning how to code line is also an H2, but it has not been changed. Let's go back to our code. And just to show you, you can make multiple changes by using this. And so I'm going to change the font family on this, and we'll just use one of them that it suggests in here. So let's take a look and let's select this one. I'm going to click save. So this is going to change it to a sans serif font. It just gives it multiple options in which to do that. But let's go take a look out on our page again. So here it is, and again, it's only affected this one instance. And this is why I want you to be really careful about when this is used, because the idea of a style sheet is to affect as many of the pages with making minimal changes. So that was the inline style. The next is what is referred to as an internal style sheet. Now, by comparison to the inline style, the internal style sheet will affect every element on that page, but only that page. So you can see it's a little bit further reaching than the inline style, but it is still somewhat limited. So use this in cases where there might be something unique on the particular web page so that you only want to apply it to that page and not broad across everything. So let's again go back to our Dreamweaver file. I am going to, in this case, delete this out here. I'm going to cut that out. So here's our H2. It's just plain again. Now I'm going to go up into the head. So I'm going in between the two opening and closing head files. To create an internal style sheet, I need to create a tag that's just called style. And I'm going to close that right away. Notice it changes everything to kind of this purpley color. Granted, it depends on the setting that you have for the view of your editor, and if you're using something like Dreamweaver or if you're using something else. So let's go ahead and create this style so that it affects all H2s. Don't worry about the specifics of what I'm typing right now, because in another video I will detail what I refer to as the anatomy of a style, but I want you to understand the difference between an inline style, an internal style, and an external style. So in this case, this is internal. It's going to affect everything on the page, so I'm going to say it's going to affect all of my H2s. We will make those same changes. So let us change the color. Okay, so this is that same dark teal color that we used in the inline style, but this will now affect all of our H2s. Likewise, I'm going to go in and choose the font family, and we'll grab the same one that we did before. And now let's go take a look at our web page, and you're going to see the difference. Whereas before it only affected this one H2 because it was an inline style, this has affected all of the H2s on this page, which in this case happens to be both this Women in STEM and Learning How to Code line. Likewise, it would happen, let's go back, if we were to create a paragraph style. In this case, let's just change the font family and leave everything else. We're going to change it to the same font family that we used for the H2s. So I saved my document and I'm going to go preview out in Google Chrome again and see how it changes everything that has a paragraph style associated with it. So from my menu to the paragraphs under each of the headings, but it didn't change these items down here because they are part of an ordered list. In this case, it didn't affect my H3, it didn't affect my H2s or my H1s, but it did affect everything else on this page, so you can see how it's a little more extensive than just doing an inline style. And lastly, we have what's referred to as an external style or an external style sheet. This affects every web page that this particular style sheet is associated with. So ideally, this can change your entire website with just changing the information on one file. Each page of your website, in order for this to work, must include this link to the style sheet. And we'll go through this in a moment in our Dreamweaver file using the link tag that exists in the head. In addition, the external style sheet is saved with a .css extension, which we can see right up here, and is not saved with a .html. So this is very important that you remember. So this is in Dreamweaver to our index file, and let's take a look at what this file looks like without any style sheet associated with it. So I'm going to go and preview it in Google Chrome. This is my biography page. This is just the HTML. Let's go back to Dreamweaver and we're going to attach an external style sheet. I have already created the style sheet, so there's a number of things in here. And to just show you that similar to the HTML files that all exist in the same folder, so there's my about, my gallery, and my index, my style sheet also exists in here. So this is that style sheet that I already created. So I'm going to be linking my index file to this style sheet. So let's go back to the editor and let's go to the index tab and let's create the link. So what I need to do is within the head tags, so in between those, so this is not something that you would see on the browser page, we create a link and we use the word link. And then we have to add some additional information. The first is this REL, which is the relation or relative, and in that we're going to select style sheet. The other thing that we need to do is define the type. And in this case, it's a text CSS file versus you can see the other option is text JavaScript. We want the CSS file. Finally, now we use our href, which should be similar. You should be aware of what this is, because href is the hyperlink reference, which is the same thing that we use in an ahref, which is an anchor link in the text of our document. So we use the href. I'm just going to click it so I can browse. And as I showed you, these files are all located in the same folder. So I'm going to select Styles and Open. And there it is. And then I'm just going to close out this link. Notice when we do a link, there is no opening or closing. It is all self-contained. So this is now going to actually link us to the style sheet that's external, meaning it's saved outside of this page. So I'm going to click Save, and we're going to go and take a look at it in our browser. Now that I've had the styles attached, now this is what our page looks like. If we look at the tab, this is what it looked like prior to saving the external style sheet, and this is what it looked like once we applied this. In addition, if we have applied that same link to the About Me page and the Image Gallery page, these styles would go across everything. So for example, let's go back to Dreamweaver. I like to be able to just simply copy this now that I have it, since all of these images are in the same all of these files are in the same folder, I'm just going to copy this link. I am going to go to my About page. I'm going to get rid of my internal style. So I'm going to delete that. And in its place, I'm going to paste that link. So now you can see it's also linked to the style sheet. I'm going to save it and go to preview it. So now you can see how the About Me page has those same styles attached to it as the home page. It's the one style sheet that's controlling these. By comparison to, this was the internal style sheet where it only controlled these H2s and the paragraphs on this page. When we apply it to an external style sheet and we link the style sheet to the pages we want affected, it affects all of them. So that's what an external style sheet is, and it is the most powerful and most commonly used of the style sheets and will be what we are using for the majority of this semester. When we use style sheets, we have what is referred to as the box effect. Every element that our HTML creates forms a sort of box. So if we imagine it, this is what our boxes look like. We have a box that represents the H1. We have a box that represents this paragraph or the nav. If we wanted to, we could add an additional box that would probably represent the header. Then within this, we have another box that would represent the main or a div, which we haven't necessarily gotten into yet, but a div tag that specifies this. And then we have an image, and we probably have a couple of paragraphs. We have another H2, and we have an unordered list. And the reason it's important to think of these as boxes is we can apply colors to the text. We can apply margin, we can apply padding, we can apply background colors, and it will affect the entire box. Let's go back to our sample that's out on our browser. This across the top is an H1, so it's affected the text and the background color. This is an H2. It's affected the background color and the text, and so on and so forth. That's why it's important to think of these as boxes and how we can control what goes into them. Box controls things like the width and height, borders that might get applied, background color in images, the position in the browser window. We can use div tags to create IDs that control a box that wraps around the entire website that we can then center in our page. It controls the text, both the typeface, the size, the color, the text decoration, the text emphasis, so if it's italics, bold, uppercase, and so on. And it also impacts how images look, which we haven't gotten into yet, but we will shortly. The size of the images, the position of the images, and the alignment of the images. So there's any number of things that the CSS controls. So that's the last part of this particular video, and we're going to go into the next one. We're going to talk about the actual styles themselves. So in this video you learned what CSS is, what style sheets are, the differences between an inline style, an internal style, and an external style, and an introduction to how to create them. You also learned about the box model, which we will be talking about more as we progress through class. And in the next one, we will move on to the anatomy of a style.